Hey everybody, hope you all are doing well and welcome back. And today I am back with yet another tasting of whiskey that's a bit of an oddball, and probably more correctly to say it's sort of a black sheep of its family, a yearly special release that comes out from Beam. So that means that today we are trying the newest version of Little Book Chapter 6 to the finish, with its kind of eccentric combination of finished whiskeys that all combine together. That is from Booker's, but it's not really from Booker's, but it's kind of low-key from Booker's. It absolutely bears no resemblance to the rest of the Booker's line, just saying. This Little Book. So, today, we're going to give you a score based on its nose, its palate, and its finish, and figure out if we overpaid for it, by how much, and how much the bottle should actually be worth. Now, before we get to the review, if you like these hauls, if you like the wanders, you like the reviews, and all the other great stuff we got cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get notified when our newest videos come out every Sunday and sometimes in between. Now, let's get down to it. All right, so first things first, let's get this bad boy open. That's a good looking box, by the way. Look at that. It's got like a nice chocolatey color to it. I really like that. And it does. You definitely have to admit it bears a very striking resemblance to Booker's, which makes sense because Freddie No, who is the master distiller of this, his nickname was Little Book after his grandfather, Booker. So I think I'm really excited to try this one out. Let's get some glasses here. And get this bad boy open. It's got a cool little tag you can see here. I guess they come with, probably comes with all the Bookers. This is my first Little Book, so it's kind of cool to try this out and see the difference. Let's turn this over, get it equally moved around on both sides. Ooh. I love the way that they wax the top of these things. It always comes off real nice. Let's get the pop. Oh, I love that sound. All right. Pour a little for you and a little for me. Ooh. Wow, that smells great just off the top of that. You'll want to see that bottle. That's a good looking bottle. Wow. Yeah. All right, take a look at that. That juice is pretty good looking, right? It's got a beautiful like bronze and burnt auburn color. I don't know if you all can see that, but it almost looks like embers that are cooling down in a fire. And it's just got that great orange brown color to it. And believe it or not, it's actually pretty viscous. If you see it, you can see that it's when you swirl it around, it sticks to the edges of the glass pretty well. And also, when you look at the bottle, the nice thing about the bottle is that nothing about it, other than everything about it, says that it's Booker. So we were joking that it looks like the Little Book is like the evil twin from a TV soap opera of the normal Bookers. Just because it's like everything is exactly the same except for it's just a little bit darker. So that's how you know that's the bad one. All right, so now as I have this swirling around here on the table, ooh, it's already pretty strong. You can get a strong family resemblance to Beam out of the Little Book. I mean, almost as much as you can with the Habsburgs and their chins. I mean, you know it when you see it. It's definitely very, very sweet. And has, again, a very nutty and like almost like a tobacco right off the top. Now, all right, so while this is opening up, let's let that open up a little bit. And let's talk a little bit about the Little Book as a whole. Because it's a bit of a, I guess how you would call it, is like basically like a calico cat of whiskeys. This Little Book series as a whole is a yearly release from Beam Suntory. It's been developed and produced by the 8th generation distiller from the Beam family named Freddie Little Book No. And you can see that on here, I think, right here. It says Freddie. Freddie No on there. So he's like the great-great-great-grandchild, but the grandson of Booker No, from Booker's fame. And the whiskey itself has a mixture of 4 different single malt whiskeys in it that have been finished in things like cherry wood staves, applewood smoke barrels, hickory smoke barrels, as well as maple staves. Staves? In addition to that, it has 5-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon in it as well. It's got an ABV on it of 58.5%, so it definitely has a little bit of a kick to it. In fact, what does this other Booker's have on it? It's at 62.2%. Whoa, okay. Well, maybe it's I guess it's the little book. But it is just going to be an interesting hodgepodge of whiskeys put together to make a very unique perspective on what juice could really be like. So I think this is already smelling really amazing. All right, so I'm gonna take a little time to nose this out, and then I'll be right back in 1.5 seconds. All right, so as I get deeper into the nose on this one, I get a very deliberate peanut and a saccharine sweetness that you tend to find within the Bourbon families. But it's more of a Knob Creek than it is a Booker's, I think I would have to say in this case. It's got a moderate aged smell to it with like the lightness to it that almost makes it feel more like an early middle age, right? They're starting to see a little bit of balding on it. Oh, there isn't any smoke at all on it, but I do get a nice like whiff of black tea, like fresh black tea, which I think it's really unique. You don't get a lot of that in some of the other whiskeys out there. You also get some nice leather, a very strong tobacco and vanilla and dark chocolate, and almost like a little bit of not almost, very much so, like a brown sugar. Also, there's sort of like an intermediate dry cherry flavor and a slice of what I would think of as apple pie, but like it's been dehydrated. So maybe it's been sitting out for a little while in the sun at like a picnic or something. But it's definitely like a dry brown sugar apple pie. Also, less present, but there's also some definite hay, wet cereal, kind of like oatiness, and mulch. This little book, chapter 6, specifically though, I took 1 point off because I really like the ethanol and the classic masculine flavors that I'm getting on it. But, given as the whiskey has such a wide variety of finishes on it, I don't get a lot of the applewood or the cherrywood or the hickory, or not nearly as much as I thought I would or was hoping for. So it is a good all-around nose for sure. And I really like it, but I'll give it a 5 out of 6 points. All right, so now let's move on to the palate and the finish. So let's get a first sip here. Oh, it smells good. So on the initial impression I get from this in the first sip is that it aligns pretty well with what we're getting on the nose. The ethanol tingliness and that burn is upfront and personal from the very beginning. It starts to weave itself throughout the entire process to the very end. It does drink a little bit more watery than I had expected. After seeing the legs on there, I thought it would maybe be a little bit more viscous, a little heavier in the glass, in the mouth. But you know what? There's definitely a very sweet and healthy balance of tobacco and leather on that. So that's, it's got a good start to it. And I like that ethanol burn. I know some folks don't like it, but the wife is sometimes a little personal on it, but I like it. Now, just as a note for the pricing on the little book, because it is a yearly release, it doesn't come out all the time, sort of like the Yellowstone that we had, limited edition we had before, or the Diageo special releases, which should be coming out any moment, or heck, even the normal Bookers, right? The normal Bookers comes out, it's on a schedule, but it's not every single month. So it's sort of difficult to get a great pricing on this bottle because mostly you see it on the secondary hand market. I got this one specifically for $129.99 at one of my local liquor stores. But when I look online, you can find a high and a mid-range price on it at $139.99 on the mid-range and $229.99 on the high end. So that puts the average price about $166.66. So of course it's going to vary depending on where you get it and also where state you're in and all that kind of stuff as well. But that information is going to be important for later. Oh, burns the nose a little bit when you're taking a deep draft and drinking at the same time. All right, so now I'm gonna take some notes here, take a couple more sips, and get back to you here in 1.75 seconds. All right, so after taking a little bit of time to really try this one out and get a feel for it on the palate some more, my initial thought about the palate pretty much being right in line with the nose is on point. With, of course, a few enhancements, because, of course, there is still the tobacco and the vanilla and, like, the sweetness, as well as a healthy dose of ABV, at least on the palate. It has a strong ABV, which, again, I think is pretty nice. But there are also some really interesting flavors that came through on that mid-range and finish. Now in the mid-range, you get flashes of dark chocolate that pop in and out and sort of just on that indefinable range. Like you can tell it's there, but it's kind of not there. It's like when you see stars out of the corner of your eye. There is definitely that beam style nuttiness that is a backdrop to the entire production of the whiskey, but it also falls more on the Knob Creek side. You know, it feels much more of a Knob Creek style of whiskey than it does on the Booker side. So I guess I would stick it more on the Knob Creek side. Then on the finish, it leaves you with a nice steady ethanol burn on the tongue. And that's when more of the complexity starts to whisper in. Things like prunes and baked brown sugar apples and flavors like, I don't know how I would describe it, but to me it tastes like November. I don't know if that makes any sense. The finish, unfortunately, it's not the longest, but at least it's not just an instant drop-off like some of the other ones we've had, like the Yellowstone, which kind of just ended real quick. So I think that's a nice aspect of it, but one of the things that I think would improve. Now for the scoring on the palate, I took off 2 points in total. And I think it's really more than a specific reason, but more of a general expectation that I had, that I was just hoping for like a little bit more. Perhaps it's kind of a victim of its own success. You know, it's supposed to be a bottle that is the culmination of 8 generations of distilling knowledge. So I would hope the palate would just be, you know, that much better than other bottles in that $129 range. And so, you know, I also removed 2 more points for not getting much of the finish staves or the barrel flavors on the palate, which I thought would be more prominent. But you're just not getting it. They're kind of real soft spoken. So instead of getting this kind of unique, very hodgepodgey, eccentric whiskey, you kind of get more of just like a souped up Knob Creek instead. So I took off 2 points for that, 2 points for that. So that's a totality of 4 points that I removed. Now for the finish is actually pretty good. You know, again, it's not as long as I would like, and that is a pretty common trait in whiskey. It's probably one of the more difficult things to do, or maybe one thing that they put less research points in, or however they do it. So I took off 1 point for not being as long of a finish as I would have liked. All right, so that's my assessment, but you know what? You don't have to take my word for it. Let's see what the wife has to add to it. Wife score. Cheers.
1 point off from the palate, 0.5 from the finish.
So there you have it, folks. You heard it from the boss. Subtract 1 point from the palate and 0.5 points from the finish. So that gives us a total final score of 21.5 points. That also puts taste value percentage at 71.67% out of 100. And that means that this little book, Chapter 6, to the finish, goes right above the Smoke Wagon and right below the Offerman Lagavulin 11 years old on the scoreboard. So puts it at number 2, which is not too bad. Furthermore, if we take the average price that we just talked about of $166.66, we apply the taste value percentage to it, that's 71.67%, we get the actual price that this one should cost based off of what we think the taste is at $119.44. So at that price, or the price we paid, $129.99 for it, it means that we overpaid by a little bit, just $10.55 or 8.12%, which, hey, you know what? That's actually pretty good. That's not too bad. In fact, I think that's one of the closest ones on the money that we've gotten. All right, so that's our review for today of the Little Book Chapter 6 to the finish, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like these videos of the wanders, the hauls, and the reviews, and all the other great stuff we got cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when our newest videos come out every Sunday, and you know what, sometimes in between. Now, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will, and it might even be me. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.